The presidential flag bearer of the All People's Congress Party talks to SLBC.
When you go for a taught course, you fail the exams, you cannot progress.
You are the country's chief diplomat. It takes the tough questions. Do you see him as a former supervisor or boss?
Not even to the president, but to the entire nation.
Was he impressed? Talks tough.
Do you think government is not any due diligence? One is the biggest international agenda item.
Turns expressive.
You see, you've now entered the realm of serious politics.
Looks into the future.
But as we secure this, we must also have the ambition to step up.
And stays poised.
If the economy grows rapidly, your income per capita will rise.
One-on-one with Dr. Samura Kamara on SLBC TV.
The first 2 years were okay to the extent that we even developed a financial model, which if it were not for the downhill, the downturn, today Israel would have been a different country. Would have, with a visionary leader like President Nkrumah, would have finished almost all our high roads, connecting cities and this sort of thing. Because all we needed at that time was something like $1 billion. $1 billion United States dollars would give us a little over 1,000 kilometers of road. And that's what you need to connect all the major cities in this country. Okay. But then unfortunately, the price of iron ore just fell sharply. You see, if it has fallen gradually, you'd be able to adjust. But it just fell sharply. And by the time it fell, Ebola again just came just like that. So these two events were very, very lethal on us, on Sierra Leone. And when the economy collapsed to minus 21, it would have been very difficult for other economies to rise from there. And when people were dying at the rate of 100 a day under Ebola, it would have been very difficult for people to get out of that. But thanks to the Father Almighty, but also thanks to the strong political leadership of essentially the president and the community ownership and participation, because that helps us also. Mind you, when Ebola started, there was a denial because people are using politics. When you see the truth and you want to say the truth. But Ebola proved us wrong, that the truth is the truth. When it's the truth, you cannot politicize the truth. Now, after that, today, we're rising at between 4–5%. We're beginning to grow again, steady growth. Now, we're hoping that as the prices of iron ore are recovering, we'll be able to pick up again and move forward. But we are now putting more attention on economic diversification, putting more emphasis on value addition agriculture, agribusiness, private sector, because these are the areas where you can generate quality employment, sustainable employment, and that's good. And they are very predictable, dependable. You can, yes, extractive industries, but you have to be cautious now how much more you can continue to depend on extractive industries.
Dr. Kamara, from 1994 until you moved to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you stayed within the economic sector. And to a very great extent, you have seen the highs and the lows in the economic situation. You have witnessed the global economic crisis. You have witnessed the credit crunch. You have seen the downward spiral of iron ore. You have seen everything. Sierra Leone going up into 2 digits development and going down again. To what extent do you think you are properly placed now to be at the apogee of things and could be trusted?
I believe one of the qualities of a head of state is that he or she should be able to address emergencies, ad hoc events, unforeseen circumstances. And we have seen that in Sierra Leone now. President Nkrumah actually responsibly helped this country, lifted Sierra Leone from the collapse in iron ore prices to Ebola. Now, I have not only gone through that because I was part of the government in trying to lift Sierra Leone out of these two crises, but also even at an international level. I was with the Commonwealth Secretariat when international debt became a burden, was killing developing countries. I was one of those, as a senior economics officer, who advocated, studied, wrote papers, visited countries, lobbied for the debt relief. They all had HIPIC debt relief.
That was a highly indebted poor country.
Highly indebted poor
relief,
country.
yes.
I was in the Commonwealth. It was part of my portfolio as an economics officer in the Commonwealth to champion the Commonwealth part. And we did that strongly with international NGOs. We worked with the UK government, and then we moved through that. And afterwards, then you have the financial crisis again. Again, I was in the Commonwealth Secretariat when we was there. We tried to help countries to lift them up. Now, we have had a series of international downturns in terms of economic events.
What would your response be when someone says the upward flow of the economy that the government has continued to trumpet hasn't reflected on the life of the ordinary person? Bread and butter, it is called.
True. It is true.
People say the country's economy developed on paper, but not in reality, as in affecting the livelihood of the ordinary Sierra Leonean.
No, it did. I think that is that's a simplistic way of people addressing, or people not knowing exactly the impact of economic growth. When we grew up to 18–19% per annum, how did the growth arise? Not by magic. One company alone employed over 4,000 people. AML. You have a very high level of employment in London mining. Rutile stayed online also. These three companies alone supported employment in this country. Today, if you can look at the transformation of those communities around them, the mining areas, Bumbuna, Maburaka, Lonsar, even McKinney, which I believe has been the greatest beneficiary of these two mines. It did not just come by magic. Real estate just expanded. Tertiary industries, tertiary enterprises. There was a time you pass through Lonsar. As if there was nobody there, no life. But as soon as London mining started and it picked up, Lonsar transformed. So perhaps what you can tell me is that it takes time for the benefits of economic growth to trickle down. But certainly, those who were directly involved in the mining activities benefited, and this trickled down to their families. Now, if you take an average household family of, according to the recent household census, population houses of around 6 to 7 persons per household. Can you imagine? And you become all of a sudden a breadwinner, supporting 6 other people. It's not an easy achievement. It's not a mean achievement. You look at how Sierra Leone has transformed the transportation industry. And in any case, the earnings we got from those two companies sustained our reserves level for us to be able to meet our international obligations. Because when you sell, you get foreign exchange. They helped us even to provide fuel supplies. So
when you say international obligations, does that mean financial
like
international obligations?
Yeah, financial international obligations.
That is what you're driving at. How come there are those who believe that Sierra Leone is now much more in debt than before?
No, borrowing is not a crime. Borrowing is not bad in itself. You borrow for productive reasons. If you borrow for in a reckless way, I don't think that is acceptable. But our borrowing is in 2 parts. External borrowing and internal borrowing. When revenue is not performing, internal revenue is not performing, and yet the government does not want to scale down its compelling expenditures significantly, What would the government do? You borrow. You have to pay salaries. You have to buy drugs. You have to build hospitals, build schools, pay teachers, support the importation of basic foods. You understand? Now, the borrowing that government has done is so responsible that it has helped to keep the country afloat. What you can tell me is perhaps the cost of borrowing. But the same borrowing, internal borrowing that we have done through treasury bills, but it's also helped to keep the banks afloat, because those bonds were the main investment instruments for the bank. Not that I liked it, because I would have liked individuals to lend money to government. Because when the government borrows through treasury bills, it's the individual's participation in development. And that's very, very commendable. But what you don't want to do is to borrow in such a way that you put all your GDP, your output, into payment of the debt. So that's why we're guided by international borrowing principles, ratios under the HDP program. So our borrowing is consistent, is within the requirements of our debt program. Mind you, Sierra Leone is still what we call a member of, it's a low-income country, developing country, and we are a concessional. We only borrow through concessional window. And that's why we just don't go borrow recklessly. We must not borrow below, above 1%, this sort of thing. Yes, we borrowed, but just we borrowed for good reasons.
Now, you have also been Sierra Leone's foreign minister until recently.
Yeah.
Meaning you are the country's chief diplomat. To take the name of Sierra Leone abroad, to attract and woo people to your country, the country you now intend to lead.
I think today I can confidently tell you that Sierra Leone is better known today than any other time before, internationally. Because as foreign minister, we've carried the president's agenda of opening up the country, of raising the voice of Sierra Leone, of raising Sierra Leone's legitimacy overseas. Sierra Leone is known today everywhere. The flagship positions Sierra Leone has held internationally have helped us. Up to the level, even up to the level of the First Lady, where she was championing programs for anti-malaria, programs for taking care of maternal welfare and all the rest of it. His Excellency the President has been the chairperson of Africa's position on the reform of the United Nations Security Council. It's the biggest international agenda item today. Now for Sierra Leone, a small country, to be called upon to chair that committee, to lobby Africa's position, and I think the President has done that very well over the last couple of years. Now, having said that, we are also, as Foreign Minister, I've been the chairman of the Candidates Committee. Again, trying to promote Africans on international jobs, especially in the UN, within the UN. And during my chairmanship, we have succeeded for the very first time, an African to be head of WHO, Ethiopia. We lost out a little bit on the audit because we wanted our own Sierra Leonean Director General to take that job. Unfortunately, we did not succeed. So I think today, even President Nkrumah, as he's preparing to leave, he's been approached by international institutions to pilot, to steer some of their programs on gender empowerment, on malaria, the fight against malaria, even on corruption, even in crisis management. Sierra Leone has been able to send a very competent team of soldiers into international peace building. Now we are now paying a dividend, of post-conflict. So I think these are very commendable achievements.
You're running for president, and one of the people you will be running against is a person that some people describe as your former senior, perhaps your former boss, or former employee.
Who is that?
Retired Brigadier Julius Madabiu. Do you see him as a former supervisor or boss?
I was called upon by the World Bank to come and manage the finances of this country during the NPRC. I arrived there in 1994 from the Commonwealth on secondment, because they approached the Commonwealth, and then the Commonwealth sent me, I came. He was then deputy, we worked together, but I was focusing more on sustaining the economy, because I saw the lives of the rest of us were at stake. We're not combatants.
You didn't see yourself as part of them?
That's what?
I mean, you didn't see yourself as
I was part of the government. I was part of the government, but I was not part of the fabric, the military fabric, if you understand what I mean. Because I was in the Commonwealth Secretariat when the coup occurred. But I came here for a special purpose. The World Bank wanted to stay in Sierra Leone, but needed somebody to help them stay in Sierra Leone because of welfare programs. The IMF wanted to stay because of welfare reasons. Other international institutions wanted to stay because of welfare reasons. So I came here, all my attention was focused on sustaining these programs, keeping them alive, and making sure that disbursements continued for us to be able to pursue social programs. Support the children, war children, support homeless, you name it.
But then the palace coup took place 3 months to the election of 1996, and you became a minister, Secretary of State.
Let me give you a background how it took place. I didn't know about a palace coup. I was in Washington. I was still financial secretary and program manager of the IMF World Bank programs. We went there to negotiate a health sector program. That was how dedicated we were. I was not worried. I was not attending their meetings. So I was not part of the government, as it were, you know. With Hakeem Jibril, he was Secretary of State for Health. We were just going to our hotel, then we got a telephone call that Samura Kamara has been appointed Secretary of State for Finance by Brigadier Madabiu. Fine, that was good, okay? I didn't know it was
That
good.
also was from the blue.
It was so from the blue. I never knew about it. But I didn't know that it was...
Why Samura Kamara? Why did he choose Samura Kamara?
I was then financial secretary.
So why,
I'm sure
why did he choose you and no one else?
Probably he had confidence in me.
Was he impressed?
I'm sure he must have been impressed. I'm sure he must have been impressed. Because I was working with Dr. John Karimu.
Has he ever told you how impressed he was with you? To the extent that in his 3 months at the helm of affairs, you were to be the man in charge of his money bag?
Well, we did well to the extent that for the first time we conducted elections, and then there was change left. That was residual in the budget that was left, because we managed the election in such a way that we did not sort of undertake explosive expenditures and all the rest of it, you know. It was donor money that was provided anyway for the elections. So we managed in such a way that what was left was transferred into the budget and to move forward. But probably he was impressed. But we came back, and there were elections 1996, and then President Kaba became president. And what did I do? The first thing I had to do was to arrange an economic reform program. So we had to call an ERRP, an economic restructuring program. We had some fundraising activities in Geneva and London, because that was our preoccupation. Because we thought we were entering the period of post-conflict reconstruction. So we had to go and mobilize funding for that. Unfortunately, by the time we got the program, by the time we started getting positive nod, then that was 1997.
And the FRC came.
Yes,
But
yes.
Now this same man who made you Secretary of State Finance wants to be president. You want to be president too?
Yeah, I won't stop him. Everybody has his own.
Who is better off than the other? Is it the obvious answer, you are better?
No. I have my own strengths and weaknesses. He has his own strengths and weaknesses. But I do believe I have very strong strengths to make sure that I'll be a very good president in this country.
Now, let's talk about what happened. Immediately, you were named as the flag bearer of the All People's Congress Party. What came out was, you call him doctor? He's not a doctor. He doesn't have a PhD.
Yeah.
He couldn't present it to Parliament when he was going through, after he had been...
Let me ask you, because before you finish, is having a PhD criterion for becoming a president of any country?
Well, we call you doctor. And that was what became the news about Samura Kamara, that he doesn't have a PhD. So if I am to put you on the spot now, do you have a PhD?
I have a PhD. This thing came up in the media, and really, I don't want to be distracted from the fundamental challenges facing this country.
The presidential flag bearer of the All People's Congress Party talks to SLBC.
When you go for a taught course, you fail the exams, you cannot progress.
You are the country's chief diplomat.
It takes the tough questions.
Do you see him as a former supervisor or boss?
Not even to the president, but to the entire nation.
Was he impressed?
Talks tough.
Do you think government is not any due diligence? One is the biggest international agenda item.
Turns expressive.
You see, you've now entered the realm of serious politics.
Looks into the future.
But as we secure this, we must also have the ambition to step up.
And stays poised.
If the economy grows rapidly, the income per capita will rise.
One-on-one with Dr. Samura Kamara on SLBC TV.